In a world where markets shift overnight and attention span shrink by the second, one thing is becoming unmistakably clear. The old models of business, built on pressure, persuasion, and performance metrics, are starting to crack. Customers are no longer buying from faceless brands. Employees aren't motivated by fear or control. They're all craving something deeper, and that's authenticity, connection, meaning, and resonance. My guest today believes that we're entering what she calls the business of the new time, a shift from B2B and B2C thinking to something profoundly more human, H to H, human-to-human business. Joining me is Dr. Nataliya Storozhylova. I want to make sure I got that right. She's a two-time PhD, former Mind Valley executive, and founder of Conscious Business Evolution. She helps CEOs and entrepreneurs lead from heart intelligence instead of fear, building organizations that thrive on meaning, coherence, and creativity. Nataliya, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Mazen. Thank you, anybody who's watching. Happy to be here and happy to be of service.
Well, I know you talk about the business of the new time. What exactly does that mean, and what signs suggest that we might have reached a tipping point?
Beautiful question. So let's start with that the world is starting to operate at a different frequency. We basically see that that's not extraction anymore, and it's more on the resonance. And we cannot ignore the fact that the collective consciousness is raising and evolving. And together with that, the business systems as living organisms start to evolve and match to the frequency of Earth. So what do I mean with that? Have you heard of the emergence principle of the system theory?
Tell me about that.
There is a phenomenon that shows us that one element of the system doesn't have the properties of the whole system. And probably I'll give an example right away. We have seen that everywhere across nature, starting from the simple to the most complex architecture. When we build a liver from a single liver cells, one liver cell doesn't know how to build the whole liver, but it takes the necessary quantity and the quality of these cells so they can create a liver and function at a whole new level now as a system. So that is the emergence principle. And we see more and more that now in the world, this emergent principle, that it doesn't take individuals, that individuals don't know those function of a whole. And it takes the quality and the quantity for the system to take the whole next level. So the tipping point we see right now, as the collective of the planet is raising, the collective consciousness, we see the shift as far as coherence, energy, and authenticity becoming the leading principle of any business, of any living system out there. So we're moving from the industrial age consciousness that no longer sustains growth to a more heart intelligence leadership that shift the metrics to vitality from the productivity to connection from the control. And certainly
that's a very interesting perspective. And here's why I say that, because here in America, they look at building a business like a machine, and they talk about, and not usually in a positive light, but people being cogs in a machine. And as opposed to being very mechanical, you're really talking about organic, living things as opposed to something that's inanimate like a machine. And when we're talking about businesses being comprised of people, not machines. Well, I guess machine learning and stuff that may become part of our conversation later. But as a base point for our conversation, I appreciate you laying that out. That helps a lot.
Beautiful. And also, if I may add here, as far as people who are those that we are serving with our products and services, we also see that people don't want to be sold anymore. They want to be included. They want to belong. They want to become an equal part of that ecosystem. And that is very interesting, because I want to give here an example that, so I'm coming from the soft skills business. Let's say I'm more towards coaching and mentorship and different therapeutical approaches, including the quantum level biohacking. And what we see across this domain, that old marketing principles really stopped working in spring 2025. And by old, I mean actually really effective NLP-based marketing principle, they started to fall in spring 2025. I recently was on the phone with former CMO of Mind Valley, who runs his own marketing agency also for psychotherapies, for mindset, mentorship products. And he confirmed exactly the same. We spoke with another human being who helps promote the soft niche, let's say, trainers in the United States. He told me exactly that. So we're seeing that that is starting from the domain where people are able to feel more through the heart intelligence, but this is going to be inevitable, and this is going to unfold across different domains, and probably in 2 years we'll see this radical shift. So we really want to get now to this new time of sustainability. And I'll just give an example of an experiment that we ran this summer in my company. We decided to create a program that is completely opposite to what we have been ever creating. Instead of setting up a precise price, we decided to go away from the fixed fee. We spoke to the human superconscious mind instead of the subconscious, triggering the fears and that cascade. And we're suggesting our clients that we call actually the equal researchers of the product that we put together to evaluate the experience by themselves. And we just set the energetic benchmark on what is it going to be that we're ready to work if it's that energetic benchmark that has never been mentioned on the web page. They had basically on the web page their own amount to pay for the experience that they perceive. And eventually we ended up with a conversion rate 120%, meaning that it's impossible by the measures of all time, because those people who came for the masterclass, for the intro call, they called their friends, they called their colleagues, and eventually from what was that? From 58 people, we ended up having 65 people in that first group settings. And basically what they said, that we were so much in appreciation that you went so bold, so courageous, that you didn't put any specific price point that could limit us or kind of disorient us. All of them went in and they said, how can we pay you more? Because we value that you've put that with so much love, with so much care, and with so much human coherence, and with so much resonance. So we're repeating now that model. And I don't say that that will work for everybody. I know that in my niche, the clients who are resonating with my scope of work, they're mostly led by heart intelligence or soul, maybe calling, if you want to say. But more and more, we'll be seeing that it's the belonging and the resonance that is shaping the way the business goes.
It's fascinating you say this. Like, this was not something that I expected to be able to talk about, but I bought a company, let's see, maybe two years ago, and a base of clients within my industry. And I got a call from one of the old business owners' best clients who I'd never met. I'd spoken with them on the phone a few times, and they needed help. And they're like, hey, can you set up a Zoom call? Can you do this? Can you do that? And my gut intuition said, you need to go know these people. Just go help them. And they were about 12-hour drive, but by the time I would get flights and stuff booked, I could just drive there just as fast. So I literally said, let's book it. And I gave them a day, and I said, tell me what you're trying to accomplish. So the conversation wasn't about my products or services. Like, tell me what you're trying to accomplish. What challenges do you have? What obstacles are getting in the way? What have you tried? What's worked? What hasn't worked? What are the circumstances that you're trying to operate in? And I really just asked a bunch of questions to gain an understanding for what they were dealing with, what they were trying to accomplish, what was getting in the way. And I prepared one full day worth of consulting to spend with them. And because they were a client and were already buying from technically their company and then the one I just bought, I felt that, hey, this is just customer service. I'm just going to go and provide value and service and help these people. And I said, and they're like, how much you're going to charge this? I said, I'm not. I'm coming to help you. And that's what I do. And I gave them my best. And I couldn't believe how I was treated. When I rolled in, they had signs welcoming me at their front door. They had signs in the front of their building welcoming me. And these are people I hadn't met, spoken on the phone, but it was an amazing feeling. And I was so excited that I really wanted to deliver over the top. And I spent a whole day with them. And when I got done, they said, hey, what are your plans? And I was like, well, I'm not really sure, blah, blah, blah. Like, let's go out to dinner. We went out to dinner. And after they treated me to a wonderful dinner, beautiful restaurant. And they said, hey, we got a gift for you. And he had a nice card drawn up, and there was a very handsome check in there that I had never asked for. I guess what I'm trying to say is what I just heard you talk about, I kind of did, but not on purpose. But the outcome was the same. They wanted to give me more than anything I ever asked for, because
Exactly. That
And
law of
so
balance.
I have experienced what you're talking about without knowing that it was that.
Love
So
it. I so much love it. That is the law of balance, and it just naturally coming. Like you don't even need to over ask for that. It just naturally coming when you at the level of that connection, where it's a heart brain connection simultaneously.
it was unbelievable. And the day started with them as clients and it ended with them being friends. Like if they ever came to town, like they'd be welcome to stay at my house. I mean, we just really felt close and we really felt tight, but I made the effort to learn what I could do best to serve them. And they recognized that, applied it, appreciated it. And the bond that I have with those folks is amazing. It's because of what you're saying. You just gave a scientific description to a lived experience that I had and couldn't have defined any other ways. I'm curious though, you mentioned something about 2025 and you said, was it spring of 25? Everything changed. What changed? You're very precise about that date when everything stopped working. What makes you say that particular date?
So certainly I extrapolate from my own experience. So up until approximately end, I mean, there is no specifically a certain day that it happened on that day, that hour, but somewhere between end of April and beginning of May, I have clearly seen that in my scope of business, those neuromarketing strategies and neurosales that have been working up until that month just stopped working. I started to talk to my peers in the niche, like former CMO of Mind Valley, others, and they say exactly the same thing. They're like, I don't know what's happening, but up until yesterday, people were buying. And we run the same principle for the different event. Super engaged people, they just don't.
So what are some of the biggest cracks that you see in the traditional ways in which we lead, sell, and manage today?
Right. So I clearly see that over-reliance on the mental models just started to lead to more and more burnout and disengagement.
What do you mean by that? Over-reliance on the mental models. Can you, in layman's
Yeah,
terms, how would you redescribe that?
sure. So I mean, we used to live by KPIs, by that specific tactics, and just hitting the milestone in whatever possible way. But just we need to hit it this way. What I'm seeing more and more that the universal consciousness is teaching us to get more flexible with our strategies, meaning that it doesn't say that we need to skip the milestone or we need to skip the KPI. We want to open up and explore through the creative faculties how else that could be achieved. And certainly when we start as leaders, when we start managing our wholeness, our psycho-emotional intelligence more and more, we're starting to create more from coherence, more from wholeness, and certainly have deeper access to our creative faculties, where we can work at the gamma brainwave frequencies, at the flow state, where we have just direct access to creativity. And this is exactly what biohackers are training these days, going to the labs, hooking themselves to the EEG headsets to start measuring and calibrating how can they induce gamma brainwave frequency to be at this edge of being a performer, but being a performer from a very coherent, easy state where it just takes heart and brain coherence to be able to perform your very best without stressing up and graining yourself all the way down to bottom.
So is this in layman's terms? Are you talking about peak state type stuff? Because I'm a huge fan of Tony Robbins, and he always talks about peak state and how to recreate a peak state so that your I mean, he talks about like he's coached professional athletes. If and I'm going to butcher it a little bit, but if Michael Jordan, who's long since retired, but if he went out and scored 50 points in a game of basketball in a peak state, he feels unstoppable. Like no one can stop me. I'm going to score. Like he feels that peak state. And the next night he has an off night and only scores 25 points. Did he lose half of his ability in 24 hours? No. It's the same person with the same talent. It's like, I guess you're talking about the frequency. Tony Robbins might refer to it as state. Are we talking about the same thing here?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. We know that, as scientists laid down now in the classical neuroscience, we have 5 brainwave frequency. Certainly, when we're operating at the beta brainwave frequency, which is the stress and response to stress and kind of more like um, action, go getting, solving the problems. Uh, it's a different type of a personality. It's a different type of the brain. It's a different type of the brain topography, different brain regions that are engaged in this process. And when we are at the higher frequency, which is gamma, what's interesting that our brains start to synchronize different remote regions of the brain that were not functioning together in sync when we're in beta. But when we're in gamma, it's like a queen of brain frequencies where it's just start orchestrating the synchronization, where we start seeing this concept of time kind of dilution, dissolving, where we really get into flow state. And it feels like just so naturally the ideas flow through us. We have access to like archive of information, and we're able to indeed just keep the flow easily, like hours and hours and hours.
It's funny you say that because I can think of times when in America, we would say, I felt like I was on a roll. Everything's flowing. I'm on a roll. Things are just working like they're supposed to. And time goes by like that. Hours can seem like minutes because you're so engaged and so in tune to what is being required of you and how you're being challenged. So how do you advise or guide folks or businesses into tapping into that kind of peak state and using it, whether it's a personal level or a professional level or with your team? Can you talk to me about some practical applications of knowing what you know applied in the business world?
100% yes. And I'll be speaking right now from a very fresh data because I've literally just today I finished the report for the first quantum level biohacking companies where we have been running a scientific study with the brain coherence frequency. Um, so what we've seen, they operate at the quantum level. There are plenty of ways to develop the brain frequency, the gamma brainwave frequency, and to develop the flow state that we just spoke with Mazen. One way is certainly truly technological through neurofeedback, where a CEO, the team lead, the manager of the company, anybody interested individual would go to the lab, would hook themselves to the EEG device, and they would have something that I call neurogym. So just like we go to the gym to train our muscles, we would go to train our brainwave frequencies to know exactly what does it feel from inside to train gamma. So then you will start to see on the screen that you're like hitting the right the right frequency, and you'll train the brain, you'll train the neural pathways to know how does it look like. That certainly takes long time. That's training. And as alternative modalities that I see very few people actually speaking on that about that out loud, but that became a very, I would say, common practice. The medicinal retreats that companies would go on the retreat all together to source the wisdom from medicinal plants. Some of them are working through psychedelic assisted therapies, that they would just hire psychedelic assisted therapies and they would go at the C-level executives on the retreat to work on the specific team or on a specific topic for the company, or they would go to any other retreats with consciousness expanders, which would be ayahuasca, bufo, and many, many more. And we see how scientifically now these, let's say, old modalities are showing now a very solid scientific data. How does it impact the brain? What kind of faculties that opens, and how easily it, like basically when you one time you know how, you know for the rest of your life how to develop those expanded states of
Okay,
consciousness
so
and
let
gamma.
me go with this. I really liked your example of a gym for your brain. Like if I wanted to go work out, I've got gym choices everywhere. I can go lift weights or get on a treadmill, or I've never seen a gym for my mind or my brain waves. And they may be out there. I haven't seen them. Like, so how popular is this, or how is it being embraced? Like, this is my first exposure to it. So I'm curious how a high performing executive might want to tune in. How do they do that? Where do
Yeah.
they go? How does this done? So, I mean, it's
So
not like
if we're
those are on every street corner.
Yeah, if we're speaking about United States, you have their fantastic lab called 40 Years of Zen, and that's where the first biohackers would come to start training
Can
gamma
you
brain.
talk a little bit about biohackers? Because the people in the audience, some may have varied degrees of, you've mentioned that term a couple of times. Can you expound on what biohackers are and what biohacking is?
Yeah. So basically, biohacking is a science of human performance and longevity. So basically, it's all about optimization, the human reality so that they can be more human, more alive, more happy, more healthy, and certainly have access to different faculties like gamma brainwave frequencies that would help us perform much better while still being, happy, healthy individual
Okay.
versus being stressed out and burnt out.
Okay.
So
So
that's a,
you're telling me there are, what was your phrase that you used? You said gyms for the mind?
yeah, neurogym. Yeah.
Neurogym. That was your term. Okay. So please don't let me interrupt you. Tell me about how executives wanting to biohack might get the neurogym experience and how that works.
Yeah. So if you're listening from United States, you may definitely check out the 40 years of Zen lab. And I think there was one that was opened the first, well, at this point, probably around 10 years ago. And there are plenty others out there. I'm tuning from Europe. I know there are plenty of facilities, especially Lisbon is very advanced. Lisbon, Berlin is very advanced in that. So you may just type out the Neurofeedback lab in my city, gamma brainwave training, and you find exactly the one. And yeah, that would take some amount of sessions to be able to tap there. But basically, the more you train that, the more you train your neural wires to know how, the easier you go with that experience on your own.
So if I understand you correctly, with training, just like with lifting weights or running or whatever, I can condition my mind to tap into a peak state and a resourceful state,
Exactly.
almost superpower state for your brain, as opposed to just like super, like if I started lifting weights today and I'd never done it before and I did it religiously for a year, I might literally be 2 times as strong physically as I am today a year from now. To
Yeah.
take that same principle to your mind and say, hey, these are some of the things you can do, but you can make your mind probably more than 2 times, but exponentially more powerful and expand your capabilities. And if I did that as a leader, that would be one thing. But if I also had a team of people all doing that, then we're talking about elevating the levels of performance in every single team leader and team member. Am I correct?
100%, 100%. And I'm already working at the next level. I'm paving the way for vibrational medicine, for vibrational entrainments, brain entrainments. So I'm working already with quantum energy and training people use quantum energy to elevate the brainwave frequencies and certainly get to the expanded states of consciousness pretty much on demand.
So this makes total sense to me, because like the whole concept, people ask me even what's workforce alchemy. As you know, alchemy was the study of how to turn things like base metals like lead into gold. But with people, and obviously you can't turn lead into gold because it's basic chemistry. But with people, you can. I could take an employee who produces X units of output, and I can invest in training and developing and in that person, and the next thing you know, they can do 10x. That is lead into gold. And you can do that with individuals, you can do that with departments, you can do that with companies. And what I hear from you is, in essence, that's exactly what you're doing on an individual, team, and company level, just a different approach that many people haven't heard of. Like, I was not familiar with it, which is why I was curious and wanted to invite you on today, because it's new stuff for me to learn. So what do you say to skeptics or people like I'm open to learning. I'm always open to learning more about new strategies and tools that can improve individual or corporate performance. What do you say to people who don't know anything about this or might be suspect, or that seems like, oh, that just seems kind of out there? What would you say to them?
Mhm. I think let's get back to facts. We certainly know that uh, we were misled by sciences for very many years regarding human architecture. We knew that just physical body exists, and that's been it. And luckily now we have all the technologies and all the devices that allow us to measure the the biofield of a human body. And right now, the HeartMath Institute in the United States is by Dr. Joe Dispenza. Plenty of local studies here in Europe and anywhere else in the world say that we're so much more than just a physical being, that we're so much more than just a physical body. And it takes us shift of a perspective to understand that there is more. Let's say Chinese people for centuries, they have been working with traditional Chinese medicine, and they knew that instead of just putting the needles in the body to or surgery, they would just work with the energy body, with the human vitality. So they would just put in acupuncture a few needles exactly at the intercross of the meridians to release all the pressure. And they would just treat a whole bunch of different diseases that we would treat in West through conventional medicinal approaches. They would do that in 10 minutes time with huge efficiency. And certainly, I'll just basically give here probably just the basics, that we know that the human being operates from quantum physiology, operates at the physical level, at the energetic level, at the emotional mental level, and at the spiritual level. And spiritual level, we can right away put the equal mark: quantum field. Quantum field and the behind quantum field. This is a field of energy and information that we all may have access to if we start developing different faculties inside of our body. So yeah, I'll just leave it as simple as that. And
That works.
basically 25% each level give us the maximum outcome. If we were to take an effort, 24 or 25% at the physical level, 25% at the energetic level, 25 emotional, mental, and 25 spiritual, we would be the heroes of new time already. Because
That makes
why?
sense to me.
Yeah, why that is so? Scientists recently discovered that our heart has a nervous tissue inside. We have the neurons in the heart, and that synchronization that we have between the mind and the heart is so essential. And now Heart Math Institute is abundantly putting that not as a phenomenon anymore, as a huge experiment, and all the findings that they have found. And there are lots of other research institutions that are proving that that fact of heart-brain coherence allows us to expand the field of a human being, meaning that actually anytime we think that we take the decision from our mind, we actually first sense it through our neural system in the heart. And the electromagnetic field of the heart is 100 times bigger than the electromagnetic field of the mind. And this is the science that we pretty much don't know. But if we were just to become more curious towards the facts, like really up-to-date facts, we certainly can have access to our bigger scope of potential. And we don't need to be superheroes or genius. It's just knowing that we have the manual for our body that we can perform at much higher degree and actually still be happy, not just successful, but be happy and be
Th-
healthy at the same time.
So why, in your opinion, why are strategies that are built on control, persuasion, and fear losing their effectiveness?
Because certainly we know that when we operate on fear, we operate with a huge amount of cortisol in our system. And all this set of hormones and neurotransmitters shift our nervous system to fight and flight mode. And just people sense that. First, like we don't consciously know that, but we smell that. We smell that. Now scientists again prove that through the olfactory nerve, we receive the information about the cortisol level of other human being. So when let's say, when team leaders are showing up and suggesting the fear-based strategies, there is a subtle level that the team understand that there is something is not quite right here, and that simply at the biological level, the presence of cortisol, the presence of neurotransmitters in our mind, in our bloodstream, sends us a very misleading signal. And on one hand, we still operate on the fear because that's how we've been trained, because that's how our human software, I call it Android self, works. But at the same time, we already feel that there is a way to live better. There is a way to live, and like we intuitively sense that. And we're now shifted to where we start operating as more like avatar self versus
Okay.
Android self.
So we often hear be more human as advice to leaders, but what does H to H or human to human business actually look like in practice?
I'd love to start here, kind of zoom out a little bit and start here that when we start embodying the principle that everything in my reality is me, what I mean was that any external situations, any people in our reality is the projection of our inner self. It just becomes so clear how we can render our reality better. Like when we got to work as leaders on our wholeness, we just start calibrating the field around us, people around us, so they don't need to play those ugly situations, because we are becoming the master renderer of the reality. I don't know how clear and easy is that, but basically the principle that I'm now training with leaders is when we get to our wholeness and integrity, when we remove the old human programming that holds us back, we just start seeing different reality. I'm now working already with leaders who come in the companies as a very conscious self who embodies the principle that anything around me is me rendering that, where they just come into spaces and they start calibrating people. And they are much less likely stepping into the ugly scenarios where the team is not performing. We need to constantly motivate and punish somebody. No, they just like we know from Asian different masters of spirituality, how it just takes the presence of that person and something starts shifting inside of you. And that is not the kind of guru age anymore, by just like knowing that if you are the architect of your reality and you as a leader bring that in your team, in your company, in your family, you just start seeing different reality. And you don't need to work with the circumstances. You just work with the core of the core, and the reality shifts. And it's a very solid quantum science behind that, because you start operating on the principle of quantum entanglement. If there is nothing to be matched for whatever lack of performance or anything that is distortion, there won't be distortion in your reality because you have chose to be integrated self. And that's how reality changes itself.
It's funny because in America, I talk to a lot of executives and I listen to a lot of experts, and we talk about things like employee engagement. And one of the themes that I've really seen happen a lot lately is employers thinking that to engage and retain their employees, they just need to be nice to them. And as a expansion on the idea that, like, you don't want to be mean. I'm not saying that, but I think what the consensus I'm learning is more important. It's more important for business owners and leaders, not just to be nice, but more importantly than being nice is to help them win, create an environment or provide tools or understanding or whatnot that allows them to win and maximizes the probability of their success, maximizes the scope of their achievement. And I think that's what I feel and what I see and what I hear people talking about is creating an environment in a world where people achieve and succeed and are happy because of it, as opposed to my manager's nice to me. He lets me do stuff that's so superficial and shallow relative to some of the things you're talking about. How can companies, in your opinion, design systems that are truly human-centered without sacrificing profitability or performance? Because I could see where people listening might say, well, that sounds great and whatnot, but we got work to do. Like, let's just get back to work. Help me understand how you envision how companies could, again, design systems that are truly human-centered without sacrificing profitability or performance.
I'd love to take that really back to basics. I've worked at Mindvalley and I've seen a great company that has the culture that allows everybody to thrive, allows everybody to be on the same mission and know that you're a very important element in this mission. And I've seen how greatly that works. I've worked closely with this quantum level biohacking company, Lila Quantum Tech, who has that same company value and culture. And it's all actually based on love. But I think we are in the modern time, we confuse love with compassion, with just being nice. Love is a power, and every power has the field. And it's the leader's heart field, the electromagnetic field that calibrates others, whom I guess first they, in a way, they filter, because to arrive to a certain company, to serve to a specific mission, you want to be connected with that mission. You want to be at the same page. You want to be at that level of alignment, the level of coherence where serving to the bigger, serve to your exact goal. And you know exactly who you are. You know exactly why you're doing that. You basically cannot not do that. So I think it first takes company leaders to create that filtration system that eventually those who land in the company, they're 100% aligned. They know exactly why they are there. They know how much it serves their purpose. They know who they are, and they know that they really cannot not do that. So that's first, and that's I've seen as a great example at Mindvalley. I think by the time I arrived there was 2019. I was 0.5% of selected people that year. And when I arrived, I really felt, what does it mean? if you're really working with a soulmates, like the whole company, we were there 360 people. It was like soulmates, like everybody was so near and dear to me. And it was just so much easier when you're in that coherence and felt anytime you go to work, it was a celebration because we were at the level of resonance, at the level of same mission, same values. And this is what I'm building in my teams constantly, that it takes one or two leaders who are in wholeness, who are in integrity, who know how to calibrate the field, who know how to render the reality to thrive. Certainly that, mission alignment, integrity makes the whole difference. Because sometimes we may want to invest in people who are maybe a little bit less skilled, but have that core values that are 100% aligned. And we know that we will invest 3 to 6 months, let's say, to train them to be exactly what they need to be. And it's much easier than have cancerous cells inside the human organization, inside the corporation or organization, who are bad as professionals, but have zero integrity and zero coherence with the values.
I love how you keep using the example of a business as a living organism as opposed to a machine. I love that. You described energy and resonance as new currencies in business. How do you measure or observe their tangible impact on metrics like retention, innovation, or even revenue?
So again, something that I'm experimenting personally in my own business, in my own niche, that is more the transformation and super consciousness training. Um, I'm seeing from the paradigm of the business of new time that the more love we put in every process, and it literally means like on the day-to-day basis, if I am in the bad mood or something, that will not flow. I know that I have to do all my best serving strategies and tactics to put myself into the state where I am the top me, so that I can infuse everything that I'm doing with love, with happiness, with joy, whatever frequency I want to onboard there. I know that I first myself need to put in that shoes. And then from there, it just goes so much easier. And then certainly people that I engage in my projects, I'm also making sure that they're 100 aligned with my frequency. If they are not, well, first, actually, I guess I'm lucky enough that they're not coming in my orbit anymore. I guess I have created maybe like, again, like the cell. The cell inside the human body has the custom that it knows what comes inside the cell and what needs to be extracted immediately from the cell. So this is a principle I operate myself. And so first principle is infusing everything with love. And if I feel like it's not that state, I will do anything that is in my power to put myself in that state, to create from that state. And I know that it's, for very many individuals, it's not kind of practical every day, but sometimes even giving yourself a minute of break and just going and connecting with your bigger vision, with whom are you serving, why are you doing what you're doing, and just connecting with who you are gets you back on track. And then
Again, I love what you're saying. There was again, I've mentioned Tony Robbins a few times because, in America, he has a way of breaking down some of the science that you're talking about in layman's terms. So he's like, you don't have to understand how electricity works to light a room. Like I don't care. All I need to do is I know that I just go flip a switch and I can see, and I'm not going to bump into stuff. So in a practical sense, he's like, you just need to know what to do to get the outcome. You don't need to know how it works. You understand how this all works, which is what's fascinating to me. But one of the things that he said in his programs, he said, he who is more committed to his state will influence others to theirs. So what I hear you saying is, as a leader, you take the responsibility to put yourself into a peak state and are so committed to that you rub off on the others. You're more committed to your peak state than they are to their less than optimal state, and that you rub off on them and set the tone for the people on your team. Is that a accurate
exactly.
representation of what you're describing?
Precisely. And then this way you calibrate others. So then others, they just don't have an excuse because they see you every day becoming this a tuning fork. And they're like, it's either we change or we die in a way. These people cannot stay long enough on your orbit. If you're changing, they are not. I mean, it's like, again, the system, the principle of the system, then one element changes, another changes as well. It's like you are raising, evolving your consciousness, the others automatically evolve.
So if you were advising a CEO listening to this right now, what's one small daily practice that they could start using to build coherence and presence in their leadership?
I'll come back to that principle that everything in my reality is me. That means that if you want, better outcomes and you want better situations in your life, uh, turn back to yourself and see where I'm not yet giving that in the world, where I'm not giving yet that to myself. And when we just start deeply embodying, and it's really deeply embodying the wholeness, the knowingness that everything around me is me, that it's the game of my internal projections. And I'll give here an example of a computer game, because I think most of us have played computer game. When we played the whatever saga, the heroes of might and magic, you know that you have the character on your screen, right? And there are other characters, especially if you play with a huge scope of people. And it's not that that person from behind the screen comes on your screen. It's actually the projection of that player comes on your screen, and based on the settings of your computer, of your video card, of the shades, the grades, you will see that player, the projection of that player in your own light. Maybe he comes in a purple costume, but you're seeing that as a different color, as a different shape, and depending on the crispness of your video card, you'll see that differently. And let's say if your keyboard doesn't work, you cannot even give the command properly to the player. So this is exactly, that is the mirror of the reality that is happening. It's like the other people are just the projections of your own programs, and they're just mirrors to your reality. So when you start shifting the paradigm, instead of changing the world around to changing the world inside of you, the outer world start playing by your rules.
What's fascinating to me about this conversation is that on a practical level, I kind of understand it, but I don't understand the technical stuff, or didn't understand it as well as I do now based on this conversation. I look at the things like our reticular activating system, where our mind tells us what to pay attention to and what not to pay attention to. And I did an event recently where I had a list of a bunch of different items on a screen. And I said, hey, we're going to do a memory test. I'm going to give you 5 seconds to look at everything that's on the screen. And then I'm going to ask you to tell me how many red items were there. And I showed them the items, and I counted to 5, and then I took it off and it's a blank screen. And then I asked them how many blue items they saw. And they're like, well, there was about 10 times the amount of blue items on that page as there were red items. And most of them couldn't recall any of them. So the point to them was, you see what you're looking for. And just because you didn't see something, it didn't mean it wasn't there. They clearly saw, once I showed them the picture again after we were done with that experiment, they saw, wow, there's blue items everywhere. And I was like, I didn't trick you. You saw all of this is the exact same set of images I showed you before, but you didn't see it because that's not what you were looking for. And when they realized, wow, there's things that I'm missing in my world around me. There's things that are around me that are invisible. I can't see them. That doesn't mean they're not there. And if I can't see them and don't know they're there, I can't use them, and it doesn't benefit me. And it was a very much an eye-opening experience for all of them, because I understand it's the reticular activating system and how it works, but to see the people in the audience go, what else am I missing around me? Whether it's conversations or it's impressions or it's body language or it's something someone said or something someone did that actually happened that I can use to help me, or that could be a threat that I should be aware of. But they miss it all. And that's why this conversation is fascinating to me, because you're really talking at a scientific level how to enhance your capabilities between your ears. It's fascinating to me.
I love the example you gave, because it really takes, like, we live through stories, we live through experiments. This is exactly how we learn at the very best. And this is what's missing in the spaces out there. That we'll learn through experience. We'll learn more and more through play. This is the most efficient way for our human body architecture.
Well, it's very easy. Like, if I'm around a bunch of other people and I have a team of people that all see things that I don't see. And if you want to, I'm going to use one of your terms, and we have the love and the vibe and the all of us are operating in a peak state. That's great. But I need to trust that the guy to my right can see the blue items. The girl to my right can see the green items. The other guy can see the maroon items. The person to my left can see the black items, and whatever it may be. If I surround myself with a team of people and we operate as a team and have trust, then they can give me the information I need to make good decisions, because my decisions are only the sound of the facts in which they're based. And if I don't have all that input and it's accurate input, then I'm operating by default at a disadvantage. Now, it's great when you have a team, but the value that I see about what you're talking about is if I don't have a bunch of people around me, and I have to be able to see things that I don't see, and I have to be able to hear things I don't hear, and sense things that are there and can help me or can hurt me, and I don't even know they're there, much less how to take advantage of them, of the opportunities, or avoid the pitfalls. I need to know how to do that. So when I don't have the support of a team, I can be much better. And I think that's really the heart of what you're getting at. Am I mistaken, or am I on target with that?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I love that we started with that and we're wrapping up now also with that, that it's that emergence principle where the new property of a whole system appears when there is the quality and the quantity of the elements in the system.
So what's one structural or cultural change that companies can make to move from fear-based to resonant business models?
Hmm. Among of many, I would actually say the consciousness expansion, because that allows everybody. It's exactly the example that you've given with reticular activating system and so much more beyond, to see the invisible, to be able to create, to be those creators, be those leaders and creators of the new time that are able to see beyond, that are able to see into the future and retrieve those ideas from the future. But it takes certainly the amount of consciousness training, the amount of expansion to be able to see those opportunities. And what's interesting, we're now running an experiment on calibrating human consciousness to see more colors, to see more to to receive more tastes. And basically, that's what we're calling the transition from the consciousness 3D to the 5D, where you are indeed starting to, when you start working with those brainwave frequencies, when you're starting to get access to, you start differentiating so much more shades of green, so much more different tastes, and at the whole level. So there is a way for sure to calibrate us to the higher capacity to receive more input, more sensory input, and be able to compute. Because it's not a problem for us very many times to receive the input, but it's a problem to compute. And this is what we're working on.
So I know that you're going to have a wide range of options to choose from, but if there was only one piece of advice that you could offer to business owners or CEOs, what would it be and why?
I'll stick to consciousness expansion. So whatever the modality, whatever the tool you would choose, but if you are able to get to the expanded state of consciousness, have access to gamma brain waves on demand, you already become superhuman. You already become the human of the new time who just start becoming the conscious master of the reality rendering. And that's
Oh,
it. You don't need to know exactly how the quantum field functions, how the behind quantum field functions, but just as you get to know how you function, you have all the keys to all the doors in this universe, in this business infrastructure, in client loyalty and any other adherence strategies.
so how can people learn more about you, the work you do, in your company? What's the best way for them to reach out with you or connect with you?
Sure. Happy to connect with you through the webpage, consciousnessbodyevolutionlab.com. You can find me also by www.nataliya.storozhylova.com, and LinkedIn probably is the best strategy to connect through the personal
Wonderful.
business spaces.
Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your insights, and the passion for your work. It's been a pleasure, and I'm super, super glad that you agreed to come on and share that with me. Thank you.
Madam, thank you. Such a pleasure. The pleasure is mine, and happy to stay in touch and connect with all of you. I appreciate it.